It was just supposed to be a normal ride home. Emily pedaled slowly down the familiar back road she took every day after school. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the cracked pavement, and the air carried that warm, quiet stillness that only comes at the end of a school day. Her backpack bounced gently on her back. Filled with homework, she wasn't too eager to start. She hummed a little tune under her breath, lost in thought when she heard it. A sound. Soft. Fragile. Almost like a cry. She stopped pedaling and coasted to a halt, one foot on the ground, head tilted. At first, she thought maybe it was a bird, or maybe the wind playing tricks. But then she heard it again, more clearly this time. It was a whimper, faint but desperate. Emily looked around. On her right was a long-abandoned farmhouse, boarded up and overgrown with weeds. The wood of the fence that surrounded it was splintered and leaning, half swallowed by ivy and vines. Most kids avoided that road because of the old property. Some even said it was haunted. Emily never believed in ghost stories, but something about that sound gave her chills, not because it was scary, but because it sounded like someone was in trouble. She leaned her bike against a tree and approached the fence. The whimper came again, this time softer, like someone, or something, was giving up hope. Emily knelt down and peeped through a wide crack between the wooden boards. Her eyes widened and her breath caught in her throat. Lying on the dirt just a few feet away was a German shepherd. Her fur was dirty and tangled, and she was painfully thin. Her eyes, large and dark, met Emily's for just a second. In them was fear, but also something else. A quiet, pleading look that made Emily's heart ache. The dog didn't bark or growl. She didn't even move much. She just laid there, panting slowly, her swollen belly rising and falling with every breath. "She's pregnant," Emily whispered, her voice cracking. "Oh no." For a moment, the world seemed to go silent. Emily stood frozen, unsure what to do, but knowing she couldn't just leave. Her legs were already moving before her brain had decided. She ran to her bike, jumped on, and pedaled harder than she ever had in her life. She didn't know what was going to happen next, but deep down she knew one thing for certain. That dog needed her. Emily's heart raced as she pedaled home. The moment she stepped inside, she was out of breath, her hands trembling as she hurriedly explained to her parents what she had seen. Her mom, concerned but calm, immediately made a call to a nearby animal shelter, hoping they could help. But the answer that came back was not the one Emily had hoped for. "Sorry, there's nothing we can do," the shelter worker had said, his voice tinged with frustration. "That dog's been abandoned. If she's not picked up by the end of the day, she'll likely be put down. It's just how it works." The words hit Emily like a punch to the stomach. Her eyes burned with tears. She couldn't stand the thought of the dog, pregnant and alone, being left to die. "No, we can't let that happen." Emily's voice trembled, but there was no doubt in her mind. She knew she had to act fast. Her mom, seeing the determination in her daughter's eyes, agreed. They grabbed some old blankets, a flashlight, and the last of the leftover chicken in the fridge. Emily's father couldn't come with them, having to work late, but he promised he would help in any way he could if they needed more supplies. The drive back to the old farmhouse felt too slow. Emily couldn't stop thinking about the dog, what had happened to her, why she had been left to suffer. The thought of a pregnant dog, abandoned and alone, was unbearable. When they arrived, Emily was out of the car before it had even stopped. She ran straight to the fence where she had last seen the dog. Her heart pounded in her chest as she peered through the crack, praying the dog was still there. At first, she saw nothing. The empty yard seemed like it was holding its breath. But then, from behind the shed, there was a small movement. Emily's pulse quickened. There, lying on the cold earth, was the German shepherd. She hadn't moved much, but her eyes were wide, locked on Emily's face. Emily crouched down to get closer, her hand reaching toward the dog. She felt her breath catch as their eyes met. The dog didn't bark, didn't growl, didn't shy away. She just lay there, watching Emily with those dark, sorrowful eyes. "Hey there," Emily whispered, her voice gentle. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dog let out a soft, almost inaudible whimper, and Emily's heart melted. She could see the exhaustion in her eyes, but there was something else too, something that made Emily pause. It was a look of pure trust. Hope, she thought. She decided that's what she'd call her. The dog's name would be Hope. I'm going to help you, Emily said, her voice filled with quiet resolve. You're going to be okay. With shaky hands, Emily gently reached for the dog, hoping she would let her approach. Hope's body stiffened for a moment, but then, as if understanding Emily's kindness, she slowly crawled toward the young girl, letting out a soft sigh as she rested her head in Emily's lap. Emily's hands shook as she gently stroked Hope's fur, the dog's soft, steady breathing calming her frantic thoughts. She could feel the warmth of the dog's body, but the sense of urgency was impossible to ignore. Time was slipping away, and Emily knew she couldn't wait another minute. We have to do something, Mom. We can't leave her here, Emily said, her voice tight with anxiety as she looked up at her mother, who stood nearby, holding the flashlight. Her mother looked back at her, concern etched across her face. I know, Emily, but we need help. We can't just take her in without knowing if she's going to be all right. I know, but she's pregnant, Mom. She needs to be somewhere safe, somewhere she can have her puppies. Emily's voice wavered, but her determination didn't falter. We can't let them put her down. She's already been through enough. Hope shifted slightly at Emily's side, her tail giving a weak wag, as if she understood the desperation in Emily's words. It broke Emily's heart to think that this sweet dog might have faced a future filled with nothing but pain and abandonment. I'm going to make some calls, her mother said, pulling out her phone. Emily felt a surge of relief, but also a mounting sense of dread. Every minute spent waiting felt like a lifetime. The phone call didn't bring the answers they were hoping for. The shelter's voice on the other end was sympathetic but firm. We can't guarantee we can take her in tonight, the worker said. And even if we can, there's no guarantee she'll survive the night in her condition. If she's not picked up soon, she's going to be euthanized. It's the policy for animals in that state. Emily's heart sank. No, we can't let that happen, she said desperately. What can we do? Please, there must be something. The worker paused. You could try a different clinic or an emergency vet, but you'll need to act fast. Emily's mother hung up, her face pale. They don't have any available spots tonight. It's like they're waiting for her to just disappear. What do we do now? Emily whispered, her voice breaking as she looked down at Hope, who was resting her head on Emily's lap, completely trusting her to fix everything. We take her, her mother said firmly, her voice filled with quiet resolve. We'll figure it out. We can't let them take her life. Not like this. With renewed determination, they wrapped Hope in the blanket they had brought and carefully loaded her into the car. The trip to the emergency vet was silent, filled with tension and the constant, nagging fear that they might be too late. Every minute that passed felt like a weight on Emily's chest. She couldn't stop thinking about Hope's tired eyes, the way she had looked at Emily like she was her last chance. The clock was ticking, but Emily wasn't going to give up. Not now. Not ever. The drive to the emergency vet clinic felt endless. The roads were dark, and the quiet hum of the engine seemed to echo Emily's thoughts. She sat in the back seat, one hand resting gently on Hope's head, her fingers tangled in the dog's matted fur. Hope's breathing was slow, shallow, but steady. Every now and then, Emily would glance down at the dog's swollen belly, wondering if it was too late. Would Hope give birth before they could get help? Would the puppies be okay? Don't worry, girl, Emily whispered, her voice barely more than a murmur. We're almost there. Her mom drove faster now, weaving through the quiet streets, their headlights cutting through the night. Emily watched as the world outside passed in a blur. The pain of the unknown, the fear of what could happen, was eating in her. Every minute felt like a countdown to something she couldn't control. When they finally reached the clinic, it was nearly midnight. The parking lot was nearly empty, save for a single car by the front doors. The clinic's lights were still on, but the world around them was still and silent. Emily's mom helped her lift Hope out of the car, cradling her carefully in the blankets, and they hurried inside. A nurse greeted them quickly. What's the situation? She asked, her eyes immediately drawn to Hope's fragile state. Pregnant, underweight, possibly near labor, Emily's mother said, her voice urgent. She needs immediate care. Please, is there anything you can do? The nurse nodded immediately, her expression serious. We'll take her right away, she said. We'll get her checked in. You're doing the right thing bringing her here. Emily's heart fluttered with a mixture of relief and anxiety. Hope was in good hands now, but the fear of the unknown still clung to her. Would Hope survive this? Would the puppies be all right? As the nurse walked off with Hope, Emily felt her hands go cold. She stared after the woman for a moment before turning to her mother. I hope she makes it, Emily whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I hope they're all okay. I know, her mom replied softly, her arms wrapping around Emily as they sat in a waiting area, anxiously watching the clock tick by. We just have to trust them. Hope's strong, and you're strong for doing everything you could. The two of them sat there in silence, the hum of the clinic's machines the only sound. Emily's mind raced as she thought of Hope and her puppies, hoping against everything that they would be okay. A few hours later, the vet came out to speak with them. Emily stood up quickly, her heart pounding. We've done everything we can, the vet said gently. Hope is doing better. She's stable, and the puppies are fine. We'll keep her overnight to monitor her, but right now, she's out of danger. A wave of relief washed over Emily. Hope had made it, and so had her puppies. The following day, Emily could hardly sleep. She tossed and turned, anxiety running through her veins like electricity. Her mind was consumed with thoughts of Hope and the puppies. The idea of them being so close, yet so fragile, weighed heavily on her. She knew it was too early to be certain, but the doctor's words were the only comfort she had. Hope was stable, but she still didn't know what would happen next. At first light, Emily's mom woke her up. We should go check on her, she said softly, not needing to ask twice. Emily was already pulling on her shoes. They drove to the clinic again, the anticipation building with each mile. The morning was cool, the streets quieter than usual. Emily's mind raced as they entered the clinic, the familiar smell of antiseptic filling the air. They didn't have to wait long. The vet tech came out to meet them, a soft smile on her face. Everything's going well, she said. Hope is doing just fine. And you won't believe it, but she's had her puppies. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Already? Are they okay? Are they healthy? The vet tech nodded. Yes, they're all healthy. 7 of them, in fact. All strong little ones. Hope's a good mom. She's nursing them right now, and they're all doing well. A wave of relief rushed over Emily. 7 puppies. 7 tiny lives that had made it through the night. Her heart swelled with pride for Hope and joy for the puppies. Can we see them? The tech smiled warmly. Of course, but be gentle. Hope's still recovering. She's a bit protective right now. Emily could hardly contain her excitement as they walked to the back room. There, in a cozy corner of the clinic, Hope was lying on a soft blanket. She looked tired but content, her body curled protectively around her puppies. The little ones were squirming around her, their tiny bodies wriggling as they searched for warmth and food. Emily knelt down beside Hope, who looked up at her with those same trusting eyes. A soft whine came from the dog, but it wasn't the fearful, uncertain whimper from before. This one was different. It was a sound of comfort, of connection. Thank you, Hope, Emily whispered, stroking the dog's fur gently. You did it. One by one, Emily counted the puppies. They were so small, their little bodies still finding their way in the world. There were 2 that looked like they might have inherited Hope's markings, and the others were a mix of light brown and black. They'd all looked so peaceful as they curled up together. I'm so proud of you, Emily said, her voice thick with emotion. She couldn't believe how far they'd come, from a desperate, abandoned dog to this moment of safety and new life. The miracle of it all still seemed unreal. As Hope lay there, nursing her puppies, Emily knew she had done something incredible. She had saved a life that would go on to bring 7 new ones into the world. And in that moment, everything felt right. The days after Hope's delivery passed in a blur of excitement and nervous energy. Emily visited the clinic every day, her heart swelling with joy each time she saw the puppies grow a little stronger. Hope, despite her ordeals, seemed to recover quickly. Her coat began to shine again, and her once fragile body was starting to regain its strength. But it was the puppies that filled Emily's heart with wonder. 7 tiny creatures, each one different in its own way. Some were playful from the moment they were born, wriggling and squeaking as they explored their little world. Others were calmer, their tiny bodies curling up into balls of fur to sleep, trusting in their mother's protection. Emily couldn't stop marveling at how perfect they all were. One of the puppies, a small, delicate one with bright blue eyes, had caught Emily's attention right from the start. He was smaller than the others, his fur a lighter shade, and he seemed to have a special bond with Hope. Emily named him Chance. It felt right. This little puppy was Hope's chance for a new life, just as Emily had been Hope's. Days turned into weeks, and as the puppies grew, Emily could see their personalities begin to shine through. They were playful, curious, and full of energy. Hope, ever the protective mother, was always close by, watching over them with fierce love. Emily spent hours each day with the family, watching as the puppies learned to walk, chase, and play with each other. The bond between Hope and her pups was undeniable. She was the epitome of motherhood, gentle but strong, always keeping a watchful eye. One afternoon, when the puppies were around 3 weeks old, Emily sat on the floor with them, letting them crawl all over her. She could barely keep up with their tiny paws as they climbed over her legs and playfully nipped at her fingers. Chance, as usual, was by her side, curling up beside her for a nap when he wasn't exploring. "That's it, Chance," Emily whispered as the little puppy fell asleep on her lap. "You've made it." Hope lay beside her, her head resting on Emily's knee, and for a brief moment, everything felt perfect. The puppies were thriving, Hope was healthy, and Emily had kept her promise to save them. As the weeks passed, the puppies became more mobile, and Emily knew it wouldn't be long before it was time for them to find their new homes. But that wasn't something she could think about just yet. For now, she simply wanted to enjoy the moments with them. Each wag of their tiny tails, every clumsy step, was a reminder of how far they'd come. Hope and her puppies had been given a chance, and that was all Emily had ever wanted. As the days turned into months, Emily's bond with Hope and the puppies grew deeper. She had been there for every milestone, every first step, every bark, every playful tumble. But as much as she had come to love each of them, Emily knew that the time would soon come for them to go to their new homes. It wasn't an easy thought to bear. Hope had become more than just a rescued dog to her. She had become a symbol of strength and survival. Emily had watched her go from a frightened, abandoned animal to a mother who cared deeply for her pups. The bond between them was unbreakable, and every time Emily looked into Hope's eyes, she saw a deep, quiet gratitude that made her heart swell. But then there were the puppies. Each one had found a place in her heart. Chance, the little puppy with bright blue eyes, had followed Emily around from the very beginning. He was playful, sweet, and seemed to understand Emily in a way the others didn't. It broke her heart to think of saying goodbye to him, but Emily knew she couldn't keep them all. Her mom had been the first to suggest that the puppies should be adopted out. "It's what's best for them," she had said gently. "They need loving homes, and you've already done so much for them. They'll be okay, Emily." But Emily wasn't sure she could let go. She had given so much of herself to this little family, and the thought of saying goodbye to Hope and Chance especially seemed unbearable, but it was inevitable. The adoption process began. Emily's mom helped her post pictures of the puppies online, and soon, people from all over had expressed interest in adopting them. One by one, the puppies were taken to their new homes, their tiny tails wagging as they left the safe haven Emily had built for them. The first to go was the smallest of the bunch, a playful pup with a white patch on his chest. The second was a feisty little girl who had always been the most energetic. But it was Chance, the little blue-eyed pup, who was the hardest to part with. Emily had grown so attached to him, and as the day of his adoption drew closer, her heart felt heavier and heavier. The family that wanted to adopt him was kind. They had experience with dogs, and they even offered to send updates on how he was doing. But still, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that part of her was being torn away. The morning of Chance's adoption arrived. Emily knelt down and hugged him tightly. "I love you, Chance. I'm going to miss you so much." She watched as the family took him away, his little tail wagging as he bounced happily into their car. The tears came then, quiet and steady, as Emily stood in the driveway, her heart full of both sadness and pride. She had given them the best start they could have. And as she looked at Hope, who had quietly watched the goodbye from the porch, Emily knew one thing for sure: she had changed these lives. And in doing so, she had changed her own. The days following Chance's adoption were quieter than Emily had expected. The house felt emptier without the sound of playful paws and little whines of the puppies. But as much as it hurt to say goodbye, Emily knew she had made the right choice. The puppies were in loving homes, and Hope was still there with her, the two of them forming a bond that would last a lifetime. Hope had settled into her new life with ease. She was no longer the scared dog she had once been, cowering in the corner of the old farmhouse. Now she was a happy, well-loved companion who followed Emily everywhere, her tail wagging with excitement every time Emily came home. Emily had promised herself that she would never leave Hope again, and as the days passed, that promise grew stronger. One evening, a few weeks after the last puppy had been adopted, Emily sat on the porch with Hope by her side. The sun had just set, casting a warm, golden light over the yard. Hope lay at her feet, her head resting on Emily's lap, content and peaceful. "Look how far you've come," Emily whispered, her fingers running through Hope's soft fur. "We both have." Hope looked up at her, her dark eyes full of trust and understanding. There was no fear left in them now, just a quiet, unwavering bond between them. As Emily sat there, the weight of everything they had been through settled into her heart. She had saved Hope's life, and in return, Hope had saved her own in ways she hadn't even realized at the time. The joy of rescuing an animal, of giving them a second chance, had changed Emily's life forever. It had taught her about the power of love, kindness, and determination. She had learned that sometimes the smallest acts could have the biggest impact. Hope was home, and Emily knew it was where she was meant to be. But there was still one more thing. Emily hadn't forgotten about Chance. His new family had been sending updates, and she had seen how happy he was. He was growing strong, playful, and loved. That brought Emily peace. "Maybe someday I'll visit you," Emily whispered into the night, smiling softly. "But for now, I'm just so grateful. You all gave me something I'll never forget." With Hope at her side, Emily sat in the quiet of the evening, knowing that no matter where life took them, they had already made a difference in each other's lives. They had both found a forever home, and that was all that mattered.